The day I realized humans were insane was the same day I watched one of them juggle 3 plasma grenades, while humming a tune about something called rain and staying. My name is Kelrix and I serve as the diplomatic liaison for the Galactic Concordat, 3rd Spiral Division. That's a fancy way of saying I'm the poor bastard they send to deal with species too weird, too dangerous, or too stupid to handle themselves. For 200 cycles, I thought I'd seen everything. Then humanity submitted their application for Concordat membership, and my entire worldview shattered like cheap glass. Let me back up. You need context, or none of this will make sense. The Concordat has ruled the known galaxy for 12,000 years.
12,000
years. We maintain peace through a simple system. Power determines position. The strongest species sit at the High Council. The rest of us arrange ourselves in a neat little pyramid underneath them. It works because everyone knows their place. At the top, you've got the Vrexians. 8 feet tall, 4 arms, natural armor plating that can shrug off most energy weapons. They've held the primary seat for 4 millennia. Nobody questions them. Nobody wants to. Then there are the Kalathi, telepathic hive minds with reflexes so fast they can dodge laser fire. They hold the military command positions. The Torgash provide industrial might, silicon-based lifeforms who can survive in conditions that would liquefy most carbon-based organisms. They build our ships, our stations, our weapons, and so on down the line. Everyone has a role. Everyone stays in their lane. The system functions because nobody rocks the boat. Enter humanity. When their first probe crossed into Concordat space 17 cycles ago, we did what we always do: send a research team to evaluate them. Our standard procedure. Figure out what they're good at, where they fit in the hierarchy. Extend an invitation if they seem useful. The initial reports were underwhelming. Humans were soft. No natural armor. No claws, no venom, no enhanced senses worth mentioning. Their home planet had ridiculous gravity variations, extreme temperature swings, and more predators per square unit than any Deathworld we'd cataloged. Yet somehow these fragile creatures not only survived but thrived. The xenobiology team labeled them persistence hunters with above-average problem-solving capabilities. In other words, they were stubborn and clever. But nothing special. We figured they'd make decent technicians or researchers. Maybe admin staff. Every civilization needs bureaucrats, right? We were so wrong. The problem started during the intake assessment. Standard procedure requires all applicant species to demonstrate their primary capabilities. It's how we determine placement in the Concordat structure. Physical prowess, technological advancement, cultural sophistication, that sort of thing. The human delegation arrived at Station Kepler 9 right on schedule. Their ship was, well, calling it a ship was generous. It looked like someone had welded together 3 different vessels from 3 different eras and slapped some engines on the back. One section appeared to be held together with actual adhesive tape. I checked. It was adhesive tape. Military-grade adhesive tape. But still, the delegation leader was a woman named Captain Mara Stone, short by human standards, maybe 5.5 feet, with dark skin and hair she kept in tight braids. She had scars on her hands and a look in her eyes that I'd only seen in career soldiers, the ones who'd seen too much and somehow kept going anyway. "Welcome to Station Kepler 9, I said, running through my standard greeting. "I'm Kelrix, your liaison for the intake process. If you'll follow me, we'll begin the assessments." Captain Stone smiled. Humans do that when they're pleased, showing their bone-crushing teeth. It's supposed to be friendly. It looks predatory. "Lead the way, friend." Friend. Humans use that word constantly. They'll call complete strangers friend or buddy or mate, depending on their regional dialect. Our linguists still debate whether it's genuine warmth or some kind of social dominance display. The first test was physical capability. We led them to the combat arena, a reinforced chamber where applicants demonstrate their natural fighting abilities. Most species send their best warriors. The Vergesians once sent a champion who could punch through 6 inches of reinforced steel. Captain Stone's team sent a guy named Jake. Jake was tall for a human, maybe 6 feet, with the kind of relaxed posture that suggested either complete confidence or complete stupidity. He wore their military uniform, something in digital camouflage patterns that our sensors found genuinely difficult to track. "The test is simple," I explained. "Defeat the combat drone. It will match your strength level and fighting style. This allows us to accurately assess your capabilities." Jake cracked his knuckles. Humans do this. Something about releasing gas bubbles in their joints. It serves no practical purpose, but they seem to enjoy it. Just one drone? The drone will be sufficient. Famous last words. The combat drone activated, scanning Jake's physiology, calculating optimal challenge parameters. It configured itself to slightly exceed human baseline capabilities. Standard procedure. We want to see how they handle adversity. Jake didn't wait for the drone to finish. He moved. I'd seen Kulathi warriors fight. I'd watched Verxian champions in the arena, but I'd never seen anything quite like what Jake did. He didn't have their speed or strength. What he had was something far more unsettling. Absolute, complete, total unpredictability. The drone anticipated a frontal assault. Jake went low, sliding across the floor like he was made of liquid, then launched himself upward at an angle that should have been anatomically impossible. The drone recalculated. Jake was already moving again, using the arena walls, the ceiling, even the observation windows as springboards. "Is he malfunctioning?" asked one of the Torgash observers. "I don't think so," I muttered. "I think he's just being human." Jake grabbed the drone mid-flight, twisted and used its own momentum to slam it into the floor. The drone adapted, extending blade appendages. Jake laughed. Saris said in that dade. Then he did something that still gives me nightmares. He started talking to it. "Come on, you can do better than that. My grandma hits harder and she's 83. You want a piece of this? Let's go." The psychological warfare aspect of human combat had not been covered in our training materials. The drone, confused by the verbal assault and increasingly erratic movement patterns, made a critical error. It tried to match Jake's unpredictability. You can't out-chaos a human. The universe won't allow it. 3 minutes and 47 seconds after the test began, Jake had the drone in a headlock, was lecturing it about proper combat etiquette, and appeared to be trying to give it advice on its technique. "See, your problem is you're too rigid. You gotta flow, man. Water. Bruce Lee said that." Well, he said it in Cantonese, but you get the idea. The drone tapped out. I didn't know drones could tap out. Apparently Jake convinced it to. Captain Stone hadn't moved from her position by the door.
She just watched, arms crossed, that predatory smile on her face. Jake tends to make friends wherever he goes.
"That was unconventional," I managed. "That was Jake warming up. You should see him when he's actually trying." The other human delegates thought this was hilarious. They made that barking sound they call laughter. Several of them slapped Jake on the back hard enough that it should have caused injury. He just grinned wider. We moved on to the technology demonstration. Surely, I thought, this would be more straightforward. Show us your ships, your weapons, your infrastructure, standard stuff. When the human engineer, a cheerful woman named Kat Riley, stepped forward, she had bright orange hair, something about genetic modification for aesthetic purposes, and wore glasses despite humans having perfected ocular correction centuries ago. When I asked about this, she said they made her look smart. "I still don't understand." "Right," Kat said, pulling out what appeared to be a standard datapad. "So, full disclosure, our tech isn't as advanced as yours. We know this.
You know this. Everyone knows this.
But here's the thing about human engineering." She tapped the datapad, and a hologram sprang to life. "We make it work anyway." The hologram showed a human ship, one of their long-range explorers. It was maybe a quarter the size of a standard Concordat vessel. The power readings were pathetic by our standards. "This ship," Kat continued, "has 17% of the engine capacity of your average Concordat cruiser. It runs on fusion, which I know is adorably primitive by your standards. Its armor is composite metal, not energy shielding. Its weapons are kinetic accelerators with some plasma augmentation." She paused. "It has crossed 60,000 light-years, survived 14 separate combat engagements, operated continuously for 9 years without a major refit, and its crew has never lost a single member." One of the Verxian observers, a military commander named Thax, snorted. "Impressive for such limited resources. But it remains inferior to our technology." "Oh, absolutely," Kat agreed cheerfully. "Your ships are better in every measurable way. Faster, stronger, tougher, no argument." She smiled, and there was something dangerous in that expression. "But let me show you something else." The hologram changed. Now it showed the same ship, but something was different. Components had been rearranged, systems interconnected in ways that violated every engineering principle I'd ever learned. This is the same ship after the crew spent 3 weeks in an uncharted system with no supplies and a damaged reactor. They had to choose sit there and wait for rescue that might never come, or improvise. Guess what humans are really good at?
Whoa.
She didn't wait for an answer. The hologram animated, showing human crew members literally tearing apart their own ship's interior, repurposing life support systems, converting their escape pods into auxiliary power generators, using their own supplies of something called duct tape and prayer to hold everything together. They made it home, Kat said quietly. Because humans don't quit. We don't sit around waiting to die. We look at impossible situations and say, okay, but what if we just tried anyway? The chamber was silent. Your technology is superior, Kat continued, but our adaptability is unmatched. Give us inferior tools, and we'll make them work better than they have any right to. Give us proper tools? She grinned. We'll terrify you. I was beginning to understand why the intake assessment was not going according to plan. The final test was cultural sophistication. The Concordat values civilizations that have matured beyond their violent origins, that have embraced logic and order over chaos and emotion. We asked each species to present their greatest cultural achievement. The Vrexians had shown us their eternal archives, a library containing the complete history and knowledge of their people, perfectly preserved for 10,000 years. The Kalathi had demonstrated their unity songs, telepathic art that allowed entire populations to share experiences and emotions simultaneously. The Torgash had built the Ring of Makers, a space station the size of a small moon where they crafted technological marvels. Captain Stone stood in the presentation chamber and said, "We'd like to show you something called music." I expected something primitive, tribal drums perhaps, or simple melody structures. What I got was a full human orchestra playing something they called Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I don't have words to describe what happened in that chamber. Human music isn't just sound, it's weaponized emotion. It bypasses logic, ignores reason, and strikes directly at something primal that exists in all sentient beings. The strings built tension, layer upon layer, making my chest feel tight. The brass exploded with triumph, forcing my spine straight despite my species having a completely different skeletal structure. The percussion drove forward like a heartbeat, relentless, demanding, and then the humans started singing. The Concordat representatives, beings from 40 different species, each with completely different biological and cultural backgrounds, all responded the same way. We felt, not thought, not calculated, not analyzed. We felt. When it ended, the chamber remained silent for a full 30 seconds. Then Thax, the Vrexian commander who had mocked their technology, spoke. "What manner of weapon is this?" Captain Stone's smile was gentle. It's not a weapon, Commander. It's an expression of everything we've survived, everything we've lost, and everything we refuse to give up on. It's hope given form." She paused. "It's why we're here." The assessment should have ended there. We had our data, physical capability, unexpectedly dangerous, technology, primitive, but adaptable, culture, emotionally sophisticated but potentially unstable. Standard procedure would have been to assign them a mid-level position, bring them into the Concordat, and integrate them gradually. But then Tax made a mistake. "Your species shows promise," he said, in that condescending tone that Vrexians use when they're trying to be diplomatic. "Under proper guidance you could become valued members of the Concordat. We will of course need to adjust certain human behaviors. Your unpredictability is problematic. Your emotional responses require management. Your tendency toward chaos needs structure." I saw Captain Stone's expression change. It was subtle. The smile stayed in place. But her eyes went cold. "Adjust our behaviors," she repeated, very quietly. "For your own benefit," Thax assured her. "The Concordat has maintained peace for 12,000 years through order and discipline. Your species will need to adapt to our methods." "I see." Captain Stone looked at her delegation. Something passed between them, some kind of silent communication. When she turned back to Thax, her smile had teeth. "Commander, with respect, I think you've misunderstood something fundamental about humanity." "Oh? We didn't come here looking for a place in your hierarchy. We came here because our ships crossed into your space and we wanted to be good neighbors. But if you think for 1 second that humanity is going to let anyone adjust us, let me share a piece of human history with you." She pulled up a hologram of Earth, their blue and green marble of a homeworld. "See this planet? Beautiful, right? Peaceful? You know what made us the dominant species there? It wasn't strength, it wasn't speed, it wasn't armor or claws or venom. The hologram zoomed in, showing various points on the planet. It was the fact that when something tried to kill us, we said no. When something tried to eat us, we said actually, we'll eat you instead. When the environment tried to freeze us, burn us, drown us, starve us, we said try harder. She turned back to Thax. Humanity never wanted power. Then we never wanted to rule anything. We just wanted to survive, to live, to make art and music and bad jokes. But you know what happens when someone threatens that? The chamber was dead silent. We don't surrender, we don't submit, we don't adjust. We fight, not because we want to, but because something deep in our DNA, something forged across millions of years of refusing to go extinct, won't let us do anything else. Captain Stone's voice dropped even lower. So here's what's going to happen, Commander. Humanity will join your Concordat, but on our terms.
As equals.
Not as subordinates who need adjustment, because the alternative is humanity deciding that maybe we don't need the Concordat after all. And trust me, you really don't want to find out what happens when humans decide they need to make their own path. The Fox bristled, his armor plates shifted, a threat display that had cowed lesser species for millennia. You dare threaten the Concordat? No, Commander. Captain Stone's smile was back, but there was no warmth in it.
Oh.
I'm explaining reality. Humans don't make threats, we make promises. And I promise you this, try to force humanity into submission, and you'll discover exactly why we climbed to the top of the food chain on a Deathworld, and why we plan to stay there. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, oh, and Jake, show the good commander what you've been juggling. That's when I noticed Jake had been casually tossing 3 plasma grenades in the air while humming. My life flashed before my eyes. Jake caught all 3 grenades, deactivated them with one hand, and grinned at Thax. Relax, big guy. They weren't armed. Probably. 70-30 odds anyway. The entire Concordat observation team took 3 steps back simultaneously. Captain Stone gathered her delegation. We'll give you some time to think about our application. Come on, folks. Let's grab some food. I heard the station has something approximating coffee. As they left, Kat leaned over to me. Hey, no hard feelings, right? We're just not good at the whole knowing our places thing. Evolution, you know, made us real bad at accepting predetermined social hierarchies. I stood there, my 4 hearts hammering in my chest, watching these impossible creatures walk away like they hadn't just fundamentally challenged the entire power structure of galactic civilization. Dax turned to me, his expression unreadable. This species is dangerous. Yes, Commander. They must be contained or eliminated. I should have agreed. Every bit of training, every protocol, every regulation said that species who refused to accept Concordat hierarchy were threats that needed to be neutralized. But I'd seen something in that chamber, something that 12,000 years of peace through power had made us forget was possible. I'd seen a species that had survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but because they simply refused to die. Because when the universe said you can't, they said watch me. Or I said carefully, we could do something unprecedented. Thax looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Explain. What if they're right, Commander? What if forcing them into our hierarchy is the wrong approach? What if instead of making them adjust to us, we actually tried to work with them as equals? That would shatter the entire Concordat power structure.
Yes, I agreed. It would.
And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what we need. Thax was silent for a long moment. Finally he said, "You're insane." "I've been spending time with humans," I replied. "I think it's contagious." And that's how humanity's application became the single most controversial issue in 12,000 years of Concordat history. But that was just the beginning. Because 3 cycles later, the message came through. The one that changed everything. The one that proved Captain Stone's point in the most dramatic and terrifying way possible. The Devourers had returned. The Devourers. Even saying the name makes my respiratory systems constrict. Every species in the Concordat has legends about them. Different names, different descriptions, but the same core truth. Once, long before the Concordat existed, something came from the dark between galaxies and nearly wiped out all sentient life. The survivors built the Concordat specifically to ensure it never happened again. 12,000 years of peace wasn't just about maintaining order. It was about building strength, unity, a force powerful enough that if the Devourers ever returned, we'd be ready. Except we weren't. The alert came through at what humans call dark 30, which apparently means an unreasonably early hour when sensible beings should be sleeping. I was in my quarters trying to understand a human text called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that Captain Stone had recommended. I still don't understand why the number 42 is supposed to be funny. My communicator shrieked. Priority Alpha alert, the kind that hasn't been used in living memory. All senior diplomatic staff report to command, immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. I made it to command in 4 minutes. The room was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Every screen showed the same thing, a tier in space at the edge of the outer rim. And pouring through that tier came ships. Not ships, organisms. Living vessels the size of moons, with surfaces that writhed and pulsed with weapons that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. The sensor readings were nightmare fuel. Organic matter fused with technology in ways that violated every natural law. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Propulsion systems that made our physicists weep. The Devourers had returned, and they'd brought friends. High Council leader Vorn, a Vrexian who'd held his position for 3 centuries, stood at the command podium. His 4 arms were steady, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Sensor data confirms 16 Devourer bioships, class designation Omega. Current trajectory puts them on course for the Kepler sector. Estimated time to first inhabited system, 48 hours. Defensive fleet status? Someone asked. Mobilizing. But our simulations show a 60% chance of total fleet destruction even with full deployment. The Devourers have adapted. Our weapons are 30% less effective than the historical records suggested they should be, meaning we were in serious trouble. What about the superweapons? The Stellar Convergence Array? Vorn's expression darkened. Requires 72 hours minimum to charge and deploy. We don't have 72 hours. The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Each species' representatives shouting suggestions, demands, accusations. This is what panic looks like when it wears a diplomatic suit. I stood there, watching the screens, watching the bioships advance, and suddenly I had the worst idea of my entire career. What about the humans? The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. I'm sorry, what? Vorn said carefully. The humans. They've been analyzing our defense networks for the past 3 cycles. They've been running simulations, studying our tactics. Captain Stone mentioned they had some ideas about potential vulnerabilities in our formation strategies. The Thax, who'd been standing near the tactical display, made a sound that I think was supposed to be a laugh. You want to ask the primitives with inferior technology to help us fight the greatest threat in galactic history? They're not primitives, I said, surprised by the heat in my own voice. They're survivors. And right now, survival is exactly what we need. Vorn considered this. To his credit, he was pragmatic above all else. Even if they have insights, what could they actually do? Their weapons are kinetic projectiles with plasma augmentation. Their ships are fusion-powered. Against the Devourers, they'd be less than useless. Maybe, I said. Or maybe we've been thinking about this wrong. Maybe superior technology isn't what we need. Maybe we need something else. Such as? I thought about Jake juggling plasma grenades. About Kat turning a dying ship into a functioning vessel with tape and determination. About Captain Stone's cold smile when she explained what happens when you threaten humanity. Insanity, I said. We need insanity. 5 minutes later, I was on a secure channel to the human delegation's ship. Captain Stone answered immediately, like she'd been waiting. Behind her I could see her crew already suiting up, already moving, with purpose. Let me guess, she said. Something bad happened. I sent her the sensor data, watched her eyes widen fractionally, then narrow. She turned, shouted something to her crew in rapid-fire English that my translator struggled to follow. Something about worst-case scenarios and told you so, and a phrase that translated roughly to time to engage maximum effort. She turned back to me. The Devourers, your historical enemy. I read the classified files you probably didn't know we'd accessed. Sorry about that, by the way. Humans are terrible at respecting digital security protocols. You hacked Concordat, secure databases? We prefer the term aggressive information gathering. But yes. And before you ask, we've been wargaming scenarios for this exact situation since we arrived. Because you know what humans are really good at? Preparing for worst-case scenarios that everyone else insists will never happen. Of course you have, I muttered. The High Council is mobilizing the defense fleet. But projections are bad. We need any edge we can get. Do you have anything? Any ideas? Any of that human unpredictability that terrifies me so much? Captain Stone's smile could have cut steel. Walgrix, my friend. Do we have ideas? We have so many ideas that our military command banned 17 of them under the too dangerous to actually attempt her category. How desperate are we talking? Existential threat to all sentient life in the galaxy. Desperate. Perfect. That's exactly the level of desperate where human plans start making sense. She paused. But I need something from you first. Name it. When this is over, assuming we survive, humanity gets a full council seat, equal status, equal voice, no adjustments, no management, no guidance. We work with the Concordat as partners, or we don't work with you at all. Behind her I could see her crew. Jake was checking weapons. Kat was already at an engineering console, fingers flying. Others were moving with the calm efficiency of people who'd trained for this moment their entire lives. I can't promise that, I said. I don't have that authority. Then get someone who does. Because Kelrix, here's the situation. We're going to fight these things whether you agree to our terms or not. That's what humans do. But wouldn't you rather have us fighting with you, instead of just fighting? I thought about protocol, about procedures, about 12,000 years of carefully maintained hierarchy. Then I thought about those bioships advancing, about entire civilizations that would be consumed if we failed. Hold one moment. I switched channels. High Council Leader Vorn. I need an immediate decision on human status elevation. Absolutely not. This is neither the time nor the place for political negotiations. With respect, sir, this is exactly the time and place. The humans have plans, but they won't share them unless we agree to equal partnership status. That's extortion. No, sir, that's humanity. They don't do subordination, but they will do cooperation. Your choice. Maintain our precious hierarchy and probably die or adapt and maybe survive. The silence stretched for 10 full seconds. Then Vorn's voice came back, tired and strained. If they can actually help save us from the Devourers, they can have whatever political status they want. But Kelrix, if you're wrong about this, you'll spend the rest of your life in a detention facility. Understood, sir. But if I'm wrong, we'll all be dead anyway, so the detention facility seems like a minor concern. I switched back to Captain Stone. You have your deal. Now what's your plan? Her grin was absolutely feral. Ever hear of something called the Trojan horse? 30 hours later, I stood in the command center of the Concordat flagship, watching the worst military strategy I'd ever seen unfold in real time. The human plan was simple, which should have been my first warning sign. Simple plans made by humans are never actually simple. The Concordat fleet had formed a standard defensive perimeter around the Kepler system. 300 ships, arranged in optimal firing formations with overlapping shield coverage and redundant support systems. It was textbook perfect. It was also, according to the humans, exactly what the Devourers expected. They're hive organisms, Captain Stone had explained during the strategy briefing. They think collectively, adapt collectively, learn collectively. That's their strength. But it's also their weakness. They expect collective responses. They expect logic. They expect us to do the smart thing. Tax had crossed all four arms. And what, precisely, is the alternative to doing the smart thing? Doing the stupid thing so aggressively that it loops back around to genius. The silence in that briefing room could have swallowed stars. But Vorn, pushed beyond desperation into a place where terrible ideas start looking reasonable, had said, "Explain." And so Captain Stone had explained. And Kat had provided the technical specifications, and Jake had demonstrated the combat applications with disturbingly enthusiastic hand gestures. And somehow, despite every instinct screaming that this was insane, we'd agreed. Now, watching it happen, I was certain we'd made a terrible mistake. The Devourer bioships advanced in perfect formation, 16 Omega-class vessels, each capable of destroying a planet. Our sensors showed them analyzing our defensive positions, calculating optimal attack vectors, preparing to annihilate us with the cold efficiency of a meat grinder. Then the human ships moved. All 47 of them, tiny compared to Concordat vessels. Pathetically armed by our standards, they broke from the fleet formation and accelerated directly toward the Devourers. "What are they doing?" someone whispered. "That's suicide." "No," I said, my eyes locked on the tactical display. "That's bait." The human ships scattered, each one flying in seemingly random directions. No formation, no coordination, no sense whatsoever. They dodged, weaved, spun, and generally violated every principle of fleet combat ever established. The Devourers hesitated. I could see it in their movement patterns. This wasn't what they expected. This wasn't logical. What was the strategy here? What was the tactical objective?
Oh.
There wasn't one. That was the point. Now, Captain Stone's voice came through the comm, perfectly calm. All human vessels, execute maneuver Stupid Alpha. The human ships each fired a single missile, not at the Devourers, at each other's missiles. In mid-space, 47 missiles collided in a carefully calculated sequence. The resulting explosion was massive, a blast wave that lit up every sensor in the fleet. It was also completely harmless to the Devourers who were too far away to be affected. I don't understand, Vorn said. What did that accomplish? Kat's voice came through, and I could hear her grinning. It accomplished absolutely nothing. That's the point. We just wasted 47 missiles on a pretty light show. The Devourers are now confused as hell trying to figure out our strategy. She was right. The bioships had stopped advancing. Their formation shifted, reorganized, trying to adapt to this new and incomprehensible threat pattern. Phase 2, Captain Stone said. Jake, you're up. Jake's ship, smaller than the rest, and painted in colors that made my eyes hurt, suddenly broke from the group and flew directly at the largest Devourer bioship, alone. One tiny human vessel against a moon-sized nightmare organism. He's going to die, Tack said flatly. Probably, Captain Stone agreed. But he's going to be really annoying about it first. Jake's ship opened fire. Every weapon he had, all at once, in a sustained barrage that looked impressive but did absolutely no damage to the bioship's armor. It was like throwing pebbles at a fortress. Pointless. Except Jake wasn't trying to damage it. He was trying to annoy it. And humans, it turns out, are exceptional at being annoying. Come on, you oversized space tumor? Jake's voice boomed across all frequencies. My grandma's garden slug is scarier than you. You want a piece of humanity? Come get some. I got your adaptive evolution right here. The Devourer bioship actually changed course. It turned, targeting systems locking onto Jake's ship, moving to swat this irritating insect. That's when the rest of the human fleet struck. While the Devourers' collective attention was focused on Jake's suicidal distraction, the other 46 human ships had repositioned, not into a proper formation, into something far stranger. They'd arranged themselves into a three-dimensional grid pattern that surrounded the Devourer fleet, at specific points in space, points that our sensors showed were completely arbitrary and had no tactical significance whatsoever. Execute maneuver Stupid Beta, Captain Stone ordered. Each human ship deployed what looked like standard sensor buoys. Small, simple, primitive technology. We'd seen them during the intake assessment. They were basic scanning devices. Nothing more. Except these weren't sensor buoys. Now, Kat, Captain Stone said quietly. Kat's fingers danced across her console, activating the boom. The buoys exploded, all 46 of them, simultaneously. But these weren't normal explosions. Each buoy contained something the humans called an electromagnetic pulse device, a primitive technology we'd abandoned centuries ago as ineffective against modern shielding. But the Devourers didn't use modern shielding. They used organic bioelectric fields, sold. And organic bioelectric fields, it turned out, were extremely vulnerable to coordinated electromagnetic pulses delivered from precisely calculated positions in a three-dimensional grid. The Devourer bioships convulsed. Their weapons powered down. Their propulsion systems stuttered. Their hive coordination fractured into chaos. That's our opening, Ordon shouted. All fleet, focus fire. The Concordat fleet opened up, 300 ships unleashing every weapon they had at targets that were suddenly vulnerable, suddenly mortal, suddenly very much not the unstoppable force we'd feared. But it still wasn't enough. The Devourers were adapting, their organic systems already compensating, already recovering. In maybe 3 minutes they'd be back to full function, and angry. Phase 3, Captain Stone said, and there was something dark in her voice, something that made my blood run cold. The fun part. Fun? I repeated. Captain, what exactly is Phase 3? Remember how I said we had 17 plans that our command banned as too dangerous? Well, we're about to find out if they were right. 10 human ships broke formation. Each one had been modified, their cargo bays converted into something that our sensors couldn't quite identify. The readings were scrambled, chaotic, like someone had deliberately sabotaged the scanning equipment. These 10 ships flew directly into the Devourer formation, not firing, not dodging, just flying straight and true, like missiles seeking their targets. "Captain," I said carefully, "what's in those ships?" "Biological warfare," she replied. "Earth-strain viral samples, modified bacteria, some fungal spores that Cat cooked up in our lab, all specifically designed to target organic technology interfaces. We basically took every nasty disease from our Deathworld, weaponized it, and wrapped it in a gift box." The command center was dead silent. "You turned your own diseases into weapons?" Foran's voice was barely a whisper. "We've been doing that since the Bronze Age," Captain Stone said cheerfully. "We're really good at it. Turns out, when your home planet tries to kill you with plagues every few centuries, you learn a lot about biological warfare, both how to survive it and how to weaponize it." The 10 human ships reached their targets. Each one rammed directly into a Devourer bioship, breaching the hull, deploying their payloads directly into the organic systems. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The bioships began to dissolve from the inside out. Their organic components, unable to resist Earth-strain pathogens they'd never encountered, simply fell apart. Weapons melted, armor plates sloughed off. Entire sections of the massive vessels just stopped functioning. "That's biological horror," Thak said, and there was a note of genuine respect in his voice. "That's using life itself as a weapon." "Yeah," Jake's voice came through, his ship somehow still intact despite everything. "Humans are terrifying. We tried to warn you." But the Devourers weren't finished. 6 bioships remained operational, and they were furious. They stopped trying to be tactical. They stopped trying to adapt. They just charged, all 6 at once, focusing their attack on the human ships that had inflicted so much damage. "All human vessels, scatter," Captain Stone ordered. "Don't let them pin you down." But there wasn't time. The Devourers were too fast, too focused. 3 human ships vanished in explosions of fire and metal. 4 more took critical damage. The humans were paying the price for their effectiveness. "We have to help them," I shouted at Voran. "Order the fleet to intercept." "We can't get there in time. Our ships aren't fast enough." I watched the tactical display, watched human vessels dying, watched the plan falling apart, and suddenly I understood something fundamental about these insane creatures. Or, they'd known this would happen. They'd known from the start that some of them wouldn't make it back, and they'd done it anyway, because that's what humans do. They throw themselves into the fire if it means saving others. "Captain Stone," I said into the comm, "get your people out of there. That's an order." "Can't do that, friend." Her voice was strained but steady. "We're not done yet." Phase 4. There's a Phase 4? There's always a Phase 4. Jake, you ready? "Born ready, Captain. Let's show these cosmic horrors why you don't mess with Earth." Jake's ship, damaged but still flying, turned and flew directly at the center of the remaining Devourer formation. And as he flew, he deployed something from his cargo bay, something that made every sensor in the fleet scream warnings, something that made our radiation detectors spike into the red. "Is that a nuclear device?" Dax's voice climbed an octave. "Did humans bring nuclear weapons to our station?" "Technically," Kat said. "It's a fusion bomb. Much cleaner. But yeah, we brought several. We're humans. We always bring the really destructive options, just in case." Jake's ship was accelerating, pushing his engines beyond safe limits. The fusion device was armed, counting down, and he was flying it directly into the heart of the Devourer formation. "Jake," Captain Stone said softly, "you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "Sure we can," Jake replied, and he was laughing. Actually laughing. "But this way's faster. And besides, I always wanted to see if I could surf a nuclear explosion. For science." "You're insane." "I am human. Same thing. See you on the other side, Captain. Try not to miss me too much. And Kelrix." His voice suddenly focused on me. "Tell the Concordat that humanity says hello." With enthusiasm. His ship reached the center point. The fusion device detonated. I've seen supernovas in recordings. I've seen stars die. But I've never seen anything quite like a human fusion weapon detonating inside a formation of Devourer bioships. The explosion was small by cosmic standards, but it was precise, calculated, perfect. The remaining 6 bioships simply ceased to exist. vaporized in an instant of miniaturized stellar fury. When the sensors cleared, there was nothing left. No bioships, no threat, no Jake. The command center erupted in cheers. Every species, every representative celebrating the impossible victory. We'd faced the Devourers and won, against all odds, against all probability we'd survived. But I couldn't cheer. I was watching Captain Stone's face on the screen, watching her stare at the empty space where Jake had been, watching her jaw clench, her eyes go hard. "Captain," I said quietly. "I'm sorry. Don't be." Her voice was flat. Jake knew what he signed up for. We all did. This is what humans do. We survive, whatever the cost. He saved us all. Yeah, he did. That's the thing about humans. Kelrix, stubborn, chaotic, unpredictable, and way too willing to die for stupid reasons. But when it matters, when the universe is on the line, we don't quit, we don't surrender, we find a way, or we make a way. And if making a way requires someone to fly a fusion bomb into the face of cosmic horror, she smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. Well, there's always a human willing to volunteer. The cleanup took days. The analysis took weeks. But the conclusion was clear. Humanity had saved the Concordat. Their tactics, their technology, their absolute refusal to accept defeat had turned certain annihilation into costly victory. 3 weeks after the battle, I stood in the High Council chambers watching Captain Stone receive humanity's formal recognition as a full council member. Equal status, equal voice. Everything they'd demanded. Vorn himself placed the council sigil in her hands. Humanity has proven itself beyond question. You fought when others would have fled. You sacrificed when others would have calculated odds. You survived when survival should have been impossible. The Concordat recognizes humanity as a sovereign power and equal partner in galactic governance. Captain Stone accepted the sigil with a nod. We appreciate the recognition. But understand something, Council Leader. We didn't fight the Devourers for political status. We fought them because they threatened people. That's what humans do. We protect, we endure. We care about things like honor and sacrifice, and refusing to let the monsters win, even when refusing is stupid and suicidal, and makes no logical sense. She looked around at the assembled council members, at the representatives of 40 species who'd just watched their entire worldview shatter. Humanity never wanted the throne. We still don't, but we will stand beside it. We will defend it, and if it ever becomes corrupt or turns against the people it's supposed to protect, her smile was sharp. We will tear it down and build something better, because that's also what humans do. The chamber was silent. Then Tax, the Vrexian commander who'd first dismissed humans as primitives, stepped forward. He raised all 4 arms in a salute that his species reserved for only the most honored warriors. Humanity has earned its place, not through submission, or adjustment, or accepting our guidance, but by showing us something we'd forgotten, that sometimes the ones who don't fit the hierarchy are exactly the ones the hierarchy needs. Captain Stone returned the salute. Then let's get to work, kid, because I guarantee you the Devourers won't be the last crisis we face. The universe is a dangerous place. But now it's a little less dangerous, because humans are in it, and we don't give up, ever. As I watched the council session continue, watched humanity take its seat among the powers of the galaxy, I thought about Jake, about his final laugh, about his choice to fly into the fire so others could live. And I understood something fundamental about these impossible creatures. They weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the smartest. But they had something no other species possessed, an absolute, unshakable, completely irrational refusal to accept defeat. Humanity never wanted the throne. But when the throne came for them, when the galaxy needed someone willing to stand against the dark and refuse to blink, they'd been there. Not because they were perfect, not because they were powerful, but because they were human. And sometimes that's exactly what the universe needs. Kelrix's personal log supplemental entry. I received a message today from Captain Stone. It contained a single human phrase and a data file. The phrase was, "Jake would have liked you. Here's something to remember him by." The data file contained music, that same Beethoven symphony they'd played during their intake assessment. But this version was different, performed live by the human fleet during the victory celebration. And there, added to the orchestra, was a new element. A single human voice, recorded before the battle, Jake singing something the humans called "Don't Stop Believin'" in a style they describe as Probably drunk, but definitely enthusiastic. I played it 17 times. I'm still not sure if it's beautiful or terrible, or both, but I understand why humans call it hope.